What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is going to be phase 2 and lesson number 1 in module 1. Okay, we're getting into the nitty gritty. We've talked about all the exercise in phase number 1. Now we're going to learn how we're going to fuel your body to get you the results that you want. And this is by far probably the most complicated piece that I've had to figure out on a personal side, but also over the last 10 years working with a bunch of people. This has been the thing that has probably evolved the most. And to be honest, it's kind of come back in a full circle, which maybe you'll understand here in a minute. But I want to talk about one thing first. First thing is kind of a backstory about me. And so, I first got into fitness like over 10 years ago. Honestly, I had gone off of a drinking problem in my early teenage years. I ended up getting sober in my early 20s. And when I got sober, I turned to food and, I gained like 30, 40 pounds. And that scared the shit out of me. And, because I come from a family of people who really struggle with their weight. And I just know how I have vivid memories of just watching my mom struggle, and it's a place in my heart for that kind of stuff. And so that literally, my mom posted a Facebook photo of me and I saw myself, and that day I went down to the gym, signed up. The rest is history. But there's a couple of important things. So when I first started out, I was training, probably 5-6 days a week, 2 hours a day, and I loved it. I was starting to get burnt out, and my diet has evolved a lot over the years. I've literally tried every single diet you can imagine. Honestly, I've gotten great results on pretty much every single diet. We'll come back to that in a little bit, but what's interesting is that, I did get great results on all those diets, but none of them really seemed to stick for me long term. And I've also tried a lot of things with a lot of clients. And so over the last 10 years, working with quite literally over probably 2,000-3,000 people, there are some key fundamentals that I've learned really kind of go across the board no matter what diet approach that you want to do or approach it. There's these fundamental things that are always there that need to be addressed or learned, if you will, or that you should at least be aware of. And I think that's where a lot of coaching, I know for me, that's where I really kind of dropped the ball because I didn't really know, but really making sure that clients know these things, because you have to know really what you're doing if you want to be self-sufficient long term. You have to have that skill set and that awareness. After I had my first kid, I fell off my diet. I couldn't go to the gym the same that I used to, and I found myself in a place where I wasn't back to what I was a long time ago, obviously, but I really didn't like who I saw in the mirror and how I felt. And, obviously I was running a gym, a transformation gym at that. And so I really kind of felt like this sense of like, I don't know what the best word is, but not necessarily hopeless, but I didn't like myself necessarily. And I felt kind of ashamed of who I was, how I was showing up each and every day. And so I kind of spent the next 6 months reviewing all of our case studies, all of our people that we've worked with, all those things that I've done. And that's when I really came across those fundamental things that worked across the board for anybody, right? And all the successful people that we've had, these were like some of the things that they all had in common, right? And it kind of dawned on me too. I was listening to a guy he was Olympic coach for a lot of these athletes, and he's had a lot of success. And he was talking about, we live in a day where so much information is available online. And with the birth of all the online training and fitness and access to all this information, one of the biggest problems is that you see somebody who you like, who, they have the body, they speak to you, you connect with them. So you go, you download their program, maybe you even work with them, and they give you the program that they've been using that has worked for them, maybe a handful of their other clients. And the problem with that is that anybody can stick to something for a month, 2, 3, even 6 maybe. But if you don't address some core things and learn to really change the fundamental habits that got you to where you were in the first place, you're going to fall off. And if you don't do it in a way that actually works for you, because everybody has a little bit of a different life, a little bit of a different backstory. And so there are certain things that need to be taken into consideration. Maybe you need to approach things a little bit different than somebody else, right? And so that's really important. And that was one of the key distinctions that I kind of got out of listening to this Olympic coach when he talked about just using a program for somebody is not enough to really change them, even if it's the perfect program, because we're not perfect people, right? And so this is where I came up with this idea of a fuel profile. And really all of that means is that it's the unique approach that we use to implement these fundamental tools into your lifestyle, so that way you can have them long term, but also get great results in the here and now, right? Because you got to still get good results, but you got to learn these fundamentals, right? And so your fuel profile is really the nutritional side of things. If you think about the first phase, we went over through all the exercise. If you think from the nutritional standpoint, that's going to be the fuel profile. So my mission is to help you figure out your personal approach to this fuel profile and showing you how to implement these fundamentals that worked for all these people, all these successful people had in common. So that way you always have the tools necessary and the resources to be able to implement any of this stuff at any time. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. And we can go ahead and now and kind of jump into how we're going to start to find that. All right. And so there's, again, key tools that we're going to use along the way. And the first one that we're going to use, which may or may not be a surprise, but it's going to be macro and calorie tracking. We have to build an awareness around your food, what you're consuming. And so that's some of the most important reasons why we want to use this. And in the resources page of this module, I'm going to have a whole breakdown on how to exactly find your macros, your calories, how to progress with a plateau. So it's a very in-depth resource. But the main things that I really wanted to cover right now is just, again, kind of why we want to do this and why it's so important to do this. That way we can get your buy-in and I can convince you that it's a good thing. All right. Some of you may or may not have done it before. If you have, great. It's going to make it easier for you. If you haven't, no worries. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. All right. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the benefits and why we want to track. And so I kind of already talked about number one, which is it's an accountability source. So as a coach, or even for you, the act of having to go in and track certain things each day, like we talked about in the first module, in the first phase, was anything that we can do on a daily basis that's a habit that will get you closer to your goals, the better. It just builds more momentum in the way we want to go. So accountability. The other thing is we want to build awareness around what you're actually doing. Guaranteed, there's a lot of things that you will learn about yourself and your eating habits that you don't already know or you just don't remember, right? And so it's really important that we build that awareness. And also over time, for me, I can literally look at a plate of food and I can pretty accurately guess how many calories are in that, meal, especially if it's like broken into like a protein and a carb and a fat source. If it's pretty easy to kind of see those things, I can get pretty close with even the macros, right? And that's because I've done it so much. So the more you do it, the more you'll have a natural sense of awareness. And that, with the accountability, is a very powerful tool. So those are the main things. The other thing is that, we want to get you a little bit more accurate with how many actual calories and macros you're taking in. And so more so like the balance of foods. And so kind of showing you how you can structure meals in a way that's actually going to be conducive to the goals that you want. But the more you track, the more freedom, believe it or not, you have over time. And so in the beginning, there is this restrictive period because you have to put the guardrails on. It's kind of like bowling. You have to put the guardrails on at the beginning to kind of keep you in line and on the lane so you can get down, the path. But once you do get those, you get more accurate and you get better at it, we can take those off. And you have so much more freedom to do so many more things, right? Like you can do all those curveballs, all sorts of stuff that maybe I'm not very good at bowling, but you can do all these different things within that same lane, but it'll get you to the same place and actually better results. All right. And so it's really important and very powerful to sacrifice a little bit of enjoyment and a little bit of extra time at the beginning for long-term success and enjoyment. All right. Sustained gratification. All right. Although you will see some good results at the very beginning, which is also a good thing. So those are the main kind of things I wanted to talk about in terms of what to expect and why we want to do it. Now I want to talk a little bit about just kind of what each thing is. And so, what is a calorie? What is a macro? A calorie is a measurement of energy. So when we eat food, we basically are taking in energy. When we think, when we run around, we're doing activity, anything that we're doing, we are burning calories. It's our metabolism, right? Metabolic burn, whatever, right? Those are basically just the energy that we're burning, and we measure the energy we burn through calories. And so that's the calorie side of things. Now, when you think of calories, you can break that down into a further step. So the energy we take in comes from different sources, and there's three that we're concerned with, which is going to be your carbs, your fats, and your proteins. So you have three main macronutrients that are broken down to make our overall calorie budget, if you will. And so the way that I think of this is another analogy, not bowling, but I think of calories as your daily budget of cash that you can spend in your bank. All right, so say you have $3,000 in your bank, 3,000 calories. Now, in your wallet, as you're going throughout your day, you have three ways that you can spend that money in your bank. You have a debit card, you have a check, and let's say you have cash. All right. So each one does the same thing. It spends your money, but sometimes they're better for different things. You want to go ahead and buy something online on Amazon, you're going to have to use your debit card. You're at the farmer's market, they only take cash, you have cash. Your landlord wants the rent, you need to pay with a check. All right. So all of them do the same thing, but in different ways. That's basically how you can think of your macronutrients. All of them do the same thing. They give you energy, but they're good for different things, right? And so they're all beneficial. You need them all, but for different things, all right? And in different quantities. So that's really kind of a bird's eye view of your calories and your macronutrients. For this video, those are the main things we want to be concerned with, or what are your calories, what are macronutrients. In a next video, we're going to get into more specifics about how to actually find your starting calorie and macro goal and kind of break it down from there. All right, well, that's going to be about it for this lesson. A couple things I just want to reiterate I think are very important. Number one, you might be thinking to yourself, why can't I just eat clean? Why can't I just, eat keto, whatever it is, a restrictive diet? My answer to that is that you can, but we're going to track as well, because there's a lot of things that you are not going to get if you've never done it. And maybe if you have done it, maybe not properly or in this format that we're going to be doing it. There's certain things that you're going to learn and that you need to have. Again, it goes back to those fundamentals, right? And those people that I've seen be the most successful, all of them had in common were these fundamental pieces, right? And so tracking them in the way that we're going to be going over is one of those things. All right. So I promise you, stick to the course, follow through, and you're going to be much happier down the road. All right. And even soon, you're going to be happy, because when you track, there's no line in numbers. You're going to start to see some good results as well. All right. So that's it for this lesson. We'll see you in the next one. Talk to you soon.